Good afternoon out there. Many of my friends, my connections here on whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch right now, maybe you know that I host a show every weekday called Context and Clarity. It's a live stream show every afternoon. It's also a podcast that comes out every morning, and I host a club and a room over on the Clubhouse app as well. They're all called Context and Clarity. Now, the idea behind Context and Clarity is to pick one topic every day that falls under the umbrella of the business of something. Now, the Context and Clarity audience is mainly, not all, but mainly architects. And so we say they're the topics that fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture. And I like to say that they're the need to know topics for the success of architects. Now, one of the things that strikes me is I try to come up with a theme for each week of Context and Clarity shows, is especially as I came to this week. And the theme that we've established for this week, my thinking was, well, why keep this theme? Why keep these conversations just inside a community of architects? Because I'm connected to many of you that are not architects. I work all throughout professional services. And this theme that we have for this week on emotional intelligence and empathy is certainly one that's important to architects, but it's also important to others in professional services. It's also important to attorneys, to accountants, to creative professionals, design professionals, real estate agents, financial advisors. And so what I thought I would do this week is just test this out. Just roll these conversations out here on LinkedIn, separate from Context and Clarity, just to see if we can have a conversation here on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch about the topic of the day, about the theme of the week, which is emotional intelligence and empathy. Like I said, now I want to make it very, very clear that my role here is not to be the expert. I am not coming to you claiming that I am an expert on emotional intelligence. I'm not even claiming that I have any emotional intelligence for that matter, but I am coming to you saying that I want to facilitate the conversation. The topic for today, and again, theme for the week is emotional intelligence and empathy. And I'll have a different topic every day, starting today, Monday, with understanding our clients better. And that really gets to the point of empathy. How do we understand our clients better? Whether you're an attorney, whether you're an architect, whether you're an accountant, whether you're some other sort of creative professional, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're an engineer or a contractor, whatever it is that you do, my firm belief is that the fill in the blank, whatever you do, the architect, the attorney, the engineer that understands your client and especially your ideal client better than anyone else, that engineer wins. I firmly believe that if you develop a deeper, and I like to say radical empathy for your ideal client, then you win. You know them better. You understand them deeper, understand them better, understand them at a deeper level than anyone else. It makes marketing, it makes branding, it makes business development, it makes sales, it makes the actual function of what you do that much easier, that much better. It helps you do better work. And so that's what I want to dig into today. So as you join me in these conversations, and the great thing about these live conversations is that once I'm done speaking, once we're not live anymore, they'll remain here. So continue the conversation, continue to ask questions and comment on the post wherever you are, Twitch or YouTube or LinkedIn. continue the conversation on this platform even after we're not live anymore, because I don't plan on taking up a lot of your time here. We'll dig into this as deep as we need to, and we'll see how far we can take this conversation. But to me, the key is, how far can we take this conversation? Your questions are important. You asking questions helps us dig deeper into the conversation. Your expertise is important because, again, I am not here to claim to be an expert on empathy today. I know some things about empathy. I've studied empathy. I have a keynote talk called Ego versus Empathy, how the stories you tell are making you a commodity. I coach and consult with clients on developing a radical empathy for their ideal clients. But I'm not here to play that expert. I'm here to play the role of facilitator for the conversation. I'm going to give you a few of my favorites, a few of my favorite techniques for developing empathy as we go. But if you join in, if you find this feed and you join in the conversation, share your own. Share your best tips, share your experience, and especially ask your questions. And it doesn't matter. I don't care what you do. It doesn't matter if you are not even in professional services or you're not in creative services. That doesn't matter. The conversation is about understanding your customers or your clients better. So how do we do that? That's the question right now. How do we understand our customers, clients, whatever you call them in your context? How do you understand them better? How do we develop deep, even radical empathy for those ideals? And I think it is really important to focus on our ideal customers or clients. So that's the topic of the day. Let me maybe kick this off by giving you a few tips. As I have researched how we develop empathy, develop understanding for other people, here are a few things that I have pulled out that I think are important. You can Google this. How do you develop empathy? Google that. You'll find several articles. You'll find lots of techniques on developing empathy. One question might be, can we actually become more empathetic? I think yes. I think you can. I think it is probably something that is baked into our being, that's baked into our personality at different levels. But I think you can develop it further. I think it's a muscle that you can work. I think it's a muscle that you can make stronger, make more functional, if I can say it that way. So let me just give you a few of my favorite tips. And then if we get any questions or comments, that's great. And if not, that's fine. I'll log off and I'll come back again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern to talk about tomorrow's topic once we get there. And I'll tell you what that topic is here in just a couple of minutes. So let's say maybe a top 5 or something like that. The first thing that I believe that you need to do is connect with people that aren't like you. Connect with your client, since we're talking about it in the context of understanding your client better. So connect with them, get to know them, ask them. We're talking about understanding. So ask them deep questions. Ask them questions. How are you? Ask them questions that are not, how's the weather? How's it going? Whatever the first question is, dig deeper. Seek to understand them better. So ask great questions and then sit back and listen. The best thing that we can do is listen and try to understand who they are, what they are, why they are the way they are, why they think the way they think, without judgment, right? We need to understand. We need to put ourselves in their shoes. So there's one tip. Another tip would be to do something that is important to them. So of course we could think of things like, and this is a little bit further out than we can do with a prospective client, perhaps. We might be willing to do this with a client or a customer that we have signed on, if we want to say it that way. But think about things that are important to them. And I'm going to keep this on a sort of a 30,000 foot view, perhaps, because I don't even know what it is that you do necessarily. But um, what's important to them? Can you worship with them? Can you work with them? Can you volunteer with them? Can you spend a day in their life? That would be the second thing, I guess. The third thing that I would do is be honest and acknowledge that we're different, and that's okay, right? We're not trying to be the same. We're trying to understand what our differences are and why, not to hold those as differences, but to understand them as differences. So that, to me, that's the third tip maybe. And a fourth might be to challenge assumptions, challenge our own assumptions, and maybe challenge societal assumptions. Again, we're keeping this at a 30,000 foot view, so I may have lost track a little bit of applying this directly to your client or your customer, but challenge the assumptions that we have. We all have biases. We have to admit that. We have to understand that. We have to challenge those things. What is it about them, right? What do I need to understand about them that makes me different from them different from me? Are those assumptions that I have? Are those assumptions that society has? Are they true? Are they real? So that was the fourth thing. And then the fifth thing that I would say, and I think this may be maybe even one of the most important, is how do we align with them? How are we similar to them? We talked about differences. We talked about understanding differences, and it's okay. It's expected that we are different. How are we similar? Where are the places that we're similar? And maybe that's the entry point to the conversation and to the understanding. Where do we align with those people that are different from us? So those are 5 tips, 5 things that I think you can do to get to know someone, to get to know another person, to get to know your client, get to understand your client better. And I think that's an important decision, right? We can get to know a client over the course of time. We can get to know a customer over the course of time. We work with them, we serve them, whatever the case may be. But I think there's a difference and a distinction there. It's one thing to get to know them, but how do we get to understand them better? Because coming all the way back around to the close to the very beginning of this conversation, I believe that no matter what you do, and again, I expect the audience of these conversations that I'm going to start hosting every day at 2 p.m. Eastern, I expect the audience will probably be somewhere in professional services, because that's the majority of my network. That's the majority of the folks that I am connected to. Those are the people, the types of organizations generally that I work with. So I expect that these conversations will take on a flavor of professional services, but I think it goes beyond professional services. The theme that I have for this week that I will cover in context and clarity that I talked about a little bit before, and I'll revisit that here in just a second as well. The theme for the week is emotional intelligence. And of course, empathy is an aspect of emotional intelligence that we can all use more. We can use better emotional intelligence. And I really do believe that the more emotional intelligence you have, and today's topic being empathy, the more empathy you have as a salesperson, as a marketer, as a branding expert, as an attorney, as an accountant, as an architect, as an engineer, as a contractor, as a real estate professional, a creative professional. I really do believe that the more empathy that you have, the better you'll be at your job, the better you'll be at connecting with those ideal clients, the more sought after you'll be, because those ideal clients or those ideal customers will suddenly be like, oh my gosh, this person, this real estate agent, this attorney, this engineer really gets me. They really understand me. They really understand where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to do and what I need to do here. So I think that's the importance of the emotional intelligence and empathy, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. So I think that's my piece today on empathy and understanding our clients better and understand why we need to understand our clients better. So again, the reason that I'm doing this, I haven't even introduced myself yet. My name is Jeff Eccles. I am the founder and president of Echo Engagement. I'm also the director of brand strategy at Entree Architect. And as part of that Entree Architect role, I host a number of things. I host the Build Your Brand podcast. I host the Context and Clarity podcast. I host a conversation on Clubhouse every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern inside the Context and Clarity room. And I host a live stream every day inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group called Context and Clarity. Every Thursday, Catherine McPhail co-hosts that with me, and we simulcast to the Facebook group, to LinkedIn, to YouTube, to Twitch. And we have a special guest every week. Last week, or a few weeks ago, we had Mike Michalowicz, the author. We had Seth Godin. I'm pretty sure you know that name. We've had Evan Troxel. We've had Ryan Willard. We've had Lance Psycho. We had Max Yoder last week, also an author, a CEO, a co-founder. And we have a special guest every week to dig deeper into one of the Context and Clarity topics. But our audience generally for those Context and Clarity conversations is architects. And like I said at the very beginning, we've got this theme this week that really made me think, since our theme is emotional intelligence for the week, why keep this just as a conversation just for architects? I put that in quotes, just for architects. Why not expand this conversation? Because I think the things that we're going to cover, the topics that we're going to cover this week are vitally important to all of us. So I'm doing this as a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to do this every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I don't know, for 20 minutes, half an hour. We'll see where this goes. I do welcome your comments. I do welcome your questions, but I want to see where this goes in the world of professional services. And again, I'm not here claiming to be the expert. I am here to facilitate a conversation. I will certainly share my 2 cents. I'll share what I know. I'll share what I've learned. I'll share my own experiences. But I welcome your expertise. I welcome your comments. I welcome your questions as part of this effort. Again, every weekday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you want to know more about Context and Clarity, especially if you're an architect, check out the Entree Architect Community Facebook group over there on Facebook. Obviously, it's only for architects. It's a place for architects to gather together and talk to each other without fear of clients or anybody from the outside. It's just I call it our mini mastermind group every afternoon, just for architects. Obviously, you can find the Build Your Brand or the Context and Clarity podcast wherever you consume podcasts. And then if you're on the Clubhouse app, find the Context and Clarity Club. And you can find my 30-minute coffee talks every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on Clubhouse. And that's really all the Context and Clarity things. But again, 2 p.m. Eastern every weekday, I'm going to start hosting these conversations, these ego versus empathy conversations. And we're going to see where they go. Maybe they go nowhere, right? Maybe this only lasts a week. I don't know. This is a big experiment. We're going to see where these conversations go. But these conversations are for everyone. I don't care what you do. I don't care who your customer is. I don't care who your client is. These are conversations that are still need to know topics for your own success. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll ask questions. I hope you'll post comments. I hope you'll share your expertise so that we can dig deep into these topics every day. So thanks. I know we didn't get any questions or comments in today's conversation. That's okay. I'll be back here again tomorrow to see if we can gain any traction in these conversations. If you watch this later, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Again, Jeff Eccles. I appreciate all of you that will interact with this and will engage with this and maybe ask a question or a comment later. And I'll see you tomorrow.